Hi, my name is Karen McGill, and you are watching It's ADHD Friendly, where we talk all things well-being for the chronically distracted. If that's you, welcome, you're in the right place. That's me too. Today I wanted to share how I'm using my ADHD to really become a superpower in my business. Now, while I am talking in an entrepreneurial context, you can use these same tips and tricks in your work life and in your home life too, and I'll give you a couple examples there too. So before we get on to the tips, I wanted to level set on what ADHD really is, because attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a bit of a misnomer. Instead of us having a lack of attention, we actually have the superpower of being hyper-focused when we are engaged and when our interest-driven brain is doing something it wants to do. So as long as we are in that mode, we are unstoppable. So that's why I love entrepreneurship for ADHDers, because that gives us the most amount of autonomy and flexibility to really choose what it is we want to do and go for it. And then just outsource the things that are not in our zone of genius. That is really helpful for us. Whereas with a 9-to-5, you don't always have the choice over all the tasks that you do in a day. So that's why I love entrepreneurship. That's why I thrive in this space. And that's why I think it's such a superpower when we get to choose what it is we want to do. Now, one thing I will say before I move on is that hyperfocus, while it is a superpower, also has its limitations. For example, I can spend an entire weekend working on a script, as I did for this one, and I won't stop when I'm so hyperfocused and so into what I'm doing until I crash and burn. But that's a topic for another video, so I'm going to put a pin in that and we'll come back to it some other point. Now, let's move on to the 3 tips. The first one is really about creating boundaries around your brain and the way you think. Now, ADHDers have a tendency to be divergent thinkers. That means we have ideas like a million miles a minute, and they may or may not be all related. Whereas a convergent or linear thinker has one idea and then it connects to another idea and it connects to another one. So when you have these many ideas, you might have some connection between them or you might not, but we're really good at connecting dots between ideas, which makes us extremely creative thinkers. So in my week, I always schedule a brain dump time, and that's my time to be divergent and just come up with all the ideas and put down whatever it is I want to do. And I keep it in my productivity system, but I never act on them then. I call it acting on a raw idea, which is not something I want to do. So I brain dump and I put it aside and I let it marinate. And then I go on with my day. Now, obviously I get ideas throughout the day. So my productivity system, which is also on my phone, allows me to quickly jot down ideas or voice record them, and they all go into the same place. Then at some point in my week, when my divergent thinking is lower and my convergent linear thinking is a little bit stronger, I'll go back to that idea box, pull it out, and start going through the ideas. But I do it intentionally and with a filter. I'll give you an example. So if I have an idea for a new piece of content, either for a video or a podcast, then I will run it through a filter of, does this have keyword capability that's going to actually work to my advantage? So if I come up with an idea but nobody's searching for it, or there's a lot of competition for it, I may not go for that idea right away. So I'll either shelf it or just let it go and or use it for my next ideation session, where I might come up with some different keywords that might be more accessible. So that's one way of filtering ideas. Another thing I like to do in my personal life, I love online shopping, as we all do. And I allow myself to go ham when I'm on an online store, putting all the things in my cart. My filter is that I do not allow myself to purchase any of it. I do not hit the buy button until 24 hours later. That way, that cooling off period really helps me determine whether or not I was buying impulsively or buying strategically or, with joy. So those are the sort of filters I put around my brain that gives me the ability to really act on my brilliant ideas, but do so in a strategic and helpful way rather than being impulsive or reactive, which is what I used to be like as an entrepreneur. Now, number 2. The next thing I do is manage my time and energy very carefully. Let's talk about energy first. Now, it doesn't matter whether or not you have ADHD, all humans have pretty unpredictable energy. If you had a crappy sleep last night, you may not be showing up as your most awesome self today. So I love being able to run my business in a way that I can do my highest impact work when I'm feeling my absolute best. That means that I intentionally choose asynchronous business models, and I'll explain what that is now. Asynchronous communication, if you will, is not in real time. So a pre-recorded video is asynchronous. However, if I were doing this as a live, it would be synchronous. Being on a one-on-one coaching call with a client is synchronous because we're both showing up at the same time as a scheduled place where we needed to be, as opposed to me coaching through a course or a program where it's pre-recorded and I've detailed all the information and my client is listening to it at a time that works for them. I love asynchronous business models because it gives you the most flexibility, autonomy, and ability to manage your energy whenever you're doing your work. Now, talking about time is a little bit different. I love time blocking, and I've known about it for a long time, but I've literally only started doing it this year, and it is a freaking game changer. Now, before I knew I had ADHD, in my entrepreneurial businesses and when I worked in corporate, I would just show up and do whatever came at me. And when I had a corporate job, very often that was very easy because my email pretty much dictated the work I needed to do at any moment. But as an entrepreneur, you don't have somebody telling you what to do. And very often I would show up for my work at any given day. And if I didn't know exactly what I was supposed to do in that moment, I would end up scrolling Instagram, which doesn't get you very far in business, let me tell you. So what I've learned to do is sit down on a Sunday night. I've created a habit out of this where I look at my week, I look at my business goals, and I detail out all the things I need to get done that week, and I literally put them in my calendar. That way, when I show up for work every morning, I'm not relying on my executive function or my prefrontal cortex to tell me what to do. It's on my calendar and I can just execute. I cannot tell you what a game changer that is. Now, the last thing that I do to make my ADHD and entrepreneurial superpower is create habits like a ninja. Now, if you have been around for any amount of time, you know that my first transformation was actually a health and fitness transformation where I went from about 210 pounds down to 130 pounds and kept it off for over 25 years. Now, I was also a pack-a-day smoker and a big partier. I had terrible eating habits. I had terrible sleep habits. I had terrible every habit. But I was managed to overcome them and become the person I am today because I was able to build habits that got me out of that just way of life. And let me tell you, losing 80 pounds and quitting smoking, those are really hard things to do. But I did them not by quitting cold turkey or doing some sort of big grandiose effort. It was slow, small, steady habit development over time. So I had to make things really easy for myself. And in doing so, I was able to develop really amazing, sustainable habits over time. And now eating well, working out every day, those things take no cognitive load for me. I just do them like as I'm brushing my teeth. And it's because of those habits. So now I'm in the habit of, as I mentioned, scheduling my week, actually coming up with workflows. Imagine that. And doing strategy up front so that in the moment when I have tasks to do, I know what to do, and it's a habit to actually continuously look back at my calendar and keep reminding myself so that I stay on track. So I know that might seem a little Captain Obvious, but are you doing it? Because if you're not, I encourage you to start. That is such a great way of putting your brain on autopilot. And the habits are basically just behaviors on autopilot. And when you put things on autopilot, it takes a lot less energy for your brain to work and function and do the things it needs to do to be a functioning adult. So all the good stuff, put it on autopilot. All the bad stuff, make it as hard or as difficult to do as possible. So those are the things that I'm doing these days to really make ADHD my superpower. I'm able to focus because I manage my time, my energy, and my ability to do the things that are within my zone of genius. And if things aren't in my zone of genius, I just outsource them. So I hope that was helpful. If you have other ways of how ADHD is your superpower, either at work or in your business or at home, drop a comment below and let me know. I would love to learn because I think we could all use more of this sort of discussion around how do we use our strengths to our advantages. So thanks for listening. Hit like if you like this, definitely subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Bye guys, thanks for watching.